Well, I'm nearly finished. And now I'm recording. I'll do the claps.
Yes! That's so apt!
So, in what looks like it's rapidly becoming an annual tradition, Edgar came down to Bill's last night.
He did.
And we went to see the new Star Wars movie together. We saw Rogue One, the latest astral conflicts tale. And we're going to record an episode about it. So this episode will be, well, what we're thinking right now is it's going to be entirely about Scoundrel Singular. We'll see how it develops. We might end up talking about other things.
So it's going to be spoiler-tastic, so I suppose this is everyone's warning.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the movie, stop now, go to cinemas, and watch it and come back and listen.
Or unless you don't care about spoilers, and then, feel free to listen.
But yeah, so, where should we start with this? Should we start with, a brief plot synopsis?
Okay.
So let's paint a word picture for the listeners who haven't seen it or do not wish to see it.
Okay. So Rogue One is set between episodes 3 and 4.
Yeah, the end of the prequels and the start of the main trilogy.
Of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And it's the story of Jyn Erso, who's the daughter of an Imperial weapons developer.
Galen Erso.
Yeah. Who was taken back by the Empire 15 years before the main events of the story to work on a secret project. And she hasn't seen her father in this time.
And her father, the impression I got, her father, almost defected. He left the Empire. He left for, a quieter life. Yeah. And then they reeled them back in. And this sets the chain of events in motion.
They reeled them back in, yeah. And so that happens when she's a little child. And she, 15 years later, she's arrested under a false identity and gets broken out by the Rebel Alliance. And gets caught up in galactic events again. Her father has seemingly sent a pilot who's defected from the Empire with information on the super weapon that the Empire are building and wants to give this to the Rebel Alliance. And that's the shortest possible version.
Yeah, there's more
the premise.
Yes, there's more to it. Obviously, there's more plot to it, but that's the premise. When you say it sounds fierce dull, but it really wasn't. What was your thoughts of the film?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Do you want to rank it in terms of the rest of the films?
I think it is the best astral conflicts film.
Out of the 8, or out of the entire genre of astral conflict?
out of the 8. Bearing in mind that I haven't fully seen episode 1.
Yeah, I hear negative things about episode 1 from you. You don't seem to like it.
And it's been a long time since I've seen a lot of the other ones, but I thought it was a superior film to The Force Awakens.
Yeah. So this time last year, when we were in this very room recording last year's Christmas special, I was a little bit angry at Force Awakens. And this Rogue One is the movie I wish Force Awakens would be. I think it's better plot. Everything's constructed better. It's more compelling. It's more interesting. It's a really good film. For me, it's same with you, the best out of the lot. Mm-hmm. 8 is the best out of the lot. Which is kind of weird that an anthology film becomes the best out of it. That feels strange. It feels odd. We feel like we're in the wrong world here, that we say that an anthology film is the best film out of them. But such a thing.
Should we maybe finish describing the events of the plot?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Jyn, who's this main character, gets... Oh, I'm trying to remember all the names. Gets involved with the Rebel Alliance, and particularly an intelligence officer named Cassian Andor.
He was... What's that actor's name?
Diego Luna.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him at all, actually.
Really?
No, I didn't remember him from anything. It turns out he has been in stuff I've seen, but I didn't register. I thought he looked like a Mexican Tom Burke.
I don't know who.
He looks like Tom Burke, and he is Mexican. Tom Burke, he's an English actor. He's in the BBC Three Musketeers.
Alright, okay.
Yeah, he plays Athos, I assume. Yeah, I think he plays Athos. And they go off. So there's 3 main bits to it. They go to the planet of Jeddah, which is where this defecting pilot has run to make contact with Forrest Whitaker.
Saul
Guerrero or something.
Yeah, Forrest. We'll go with Forrest Whitaker.
Saul Guerrero, who is a veteran of the Clone Wars. I think he's a character from the Clone Wars cartoons.
I heard that too in the lead up to this. Yeah.
And so they go there, and that's it's very classic Star Wars. It's like kind of Tatooine-y, the sort of space Orientalism, Middle Eastern city. I really like that whole thing. That was a good bit. And then they go to an Imperial base on
that moon,
rainy night planet.
The rainy night, yes, the rainy night.
And there's all kind of intrigue about what the Alliance actually want to do with this mission and her kind of thing with her father. And then at the end, they go to Space Dubai.
Yes, that's what I said to you in the cinema. Yeah. Space Dubai.
And it's the actual scene where they break the plans for this super weapon out of the Imperial archives, and as we know at this stage, the super weapon is the Death Star.
Yeah,
and it's so the film is essentially the story of how the rebels have the plans for the Death Star at the beginning of A New Hope.
How R2-D2 came to get those plans, basically. That's a pretty good synopsis. I have problems. I have a bit of confusion here.
Yeah,
is the involvement of Forrest Whitaker and his gang. I don't understand what their role is. So Jyn is off with the Alliance, the Rebel Alliance. Yeah,
they're off, by choice necessarily. She gets broken out of prison at the start,
and they're like, "We need you to do this."
Yeah.
So they go. She goes with Rebel Alliance, but then they have to find Saul, and I found it really confusing as to whether or not Saul was a good guy or a bad guy. Like,
he was opposed to the Empire, but he wasn't a member of the Rebel Alliance.
Okay, so the impression I got, though, that he was like a splinter faction from the Rebel Alliance.
Something like that, I think.
Okay, right, so I was correct about that. Yeah. And I think that the ambiguity I got from it is that maybe this splinter faction doesn't always do ethical tactics. I got that. That's why there's a difference between them and the Alliance. I found that bit a little bit... Well, yeah, wasn't explained very well. It just kind of happened. And
what was her name? One of the senators from the Rebel Alliance describes Saul as an extremist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why he doesn't get on with the Alliance. Like, he's just...
So why is that Jyn needed to go to Saul?
Because the pilot that defected was sent by her father to Saul, because he was an associate of Saul's.
So the pilot that defected was sent by her father to Saul. Why was he sent to Saul?
Because Saul and her father were associates.
Okay.
Because remember at the start, when he gets taken back by the Empire, it's Saul that takes the little girl from hiding and raises her and stuff.
Okay, now that makes sense. Yeah. The defecting pilot. The defecting pilot. I have a problem with him as well.
Why is that?
He was put in front of this monster that reads thoughts.
Yeah.
And the thing was that once it's finished reading thoughts, it breaks that person's mind.
Yeah.
That didn't really follow through.
Oh yeah, it kind of came to nothing, didn't it?
Yeah, they were like, you'll have you'll go insane. And then there's a bit where he's in the cell and it looks like he's unable to speak and it looks like he's lost his mind. But then afterwards he's a fully corpus mentis character who actually plots and schemes, and I was like, that was a bit strange.
That was a bit strange.
Yeah, I didn't really follow up on that. But small criticism. Those were the two things I didn't get about the film.
Mm-hmm.
They were a bit confusing.
The Saul thing made sense to me, and I really liked it. That it broke a very kind of straight dichotomy. That it was just the rebel and the Empire. It's less simplistic than that. The conflict is more nuanced, and there's those who are opposed to the Empire who are also opposed to the Alliance, and I enjoyed that element.
There was a thing you didn't like about the Saul storyline. Do you want to fill the listeners in how it ended? You were a bit
so we as I said, it's about the Death Star, how the rebels get the plans for the Death Star, and we see the Death Star in action quite a bit, and we see scenes on the Death Star with Grand Moff Tarkin, which was pretty cool.
We'll talk about him in a second.
Yeah,
he's the next point up.
And anyway, at the end, the Death Star fires on the planet where they are, the Jeddah. Space Orientalism, and they have to escape. They're in Saul's compound and they have to escape. the good guys, and Saul just doesn't go with them for no particular reason. He just kind of is like, oh no, my role is played, or no, you have to go and fight your fight or whatever. And that kind of thing always really annoys me in films.
Does that constitute as a Deus Ex Machina? In a way, like
No.
he's there purely just to facilitate the plot.
I think Deus Ex Machina is when it happens at the end and it solves everything at the end.
There must be a term for that, like, because you see that an awful lot where, like, that one character is its only job there is to supply plot.
Let's check TV tropes.
In case any listeners are hearing a squeaky table, we are at a very squeaky table.
You're a squeaky table.
It is a bit squeaky.
You're a bit squeaky.
I'm going to rattle it just to demonstrate. So if you hear any of that, listeners, we're really sorry. I'm doing my best. We're all doing our best to keep our hands to ourselves here.
What was I going to say? So yeah, so he just kind of like chooses death when he totally would have been able to survive. And it's, I know, all that kind of thing in films always really annoys me. Like,
and it's not...
There's no clear motivation for that.
Yeah, and it's not like we're heavily invested in the Saul character. That, like, there's an emotional impact for us. It just seems silly. Like,
yeah, maybe if you're a fan of the cartoons or whatever, but it has that impact.
You should kind of judge it on the merit of what you see on screen.
Oh yeah,
not every audience member is going to... Like, I like Star Wars, but I haven't watched all the Clone Wars. So yeah. I didn't know about Forrest Whitaker's character outside of hearing random rumors on the internet.
Well, this seems to fall on the TV tropes page. Nothing left to do but die. He decides to stay behind on Jeddah as the shockwave of the Death Star's
which was
super laser.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it was cool.
Like the Earth tsunami. Yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome. Badass.
I liked his shtick with the respirator.
Yeah, it was kind of mysterious, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like he's almost like the good version of Vader in a way. Like there's barely any of him left underneath that suit, and I bet you like because his leg was mechanical, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had mechanical legs.
And then like obviously something wrong with his lungs, so I'd imagine he's like 90% droid, which I thought was cool. Like there's an interesting story there. So maybe in the Clone Wars that's a thing that's explored. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I have to say I didn't find that it was overly full of like fan references and like winks and knowing stuff like that.
C-3PO at the end. Do you remember? We get a little shot of C-3PO doing the Dr. Obvious nonsense. That was no good. Do you remember that?
I was like, oh, why is everyone leaving? Like we were always the last to know. That bit.
Just something like that. He was just thrown in to be there. It's like, oh.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But like, I mean, everyone knows who C-3PO is. Whereas, I mean, I didn't find it was like loads of references to loads of really obscure characters. Maybe they were, and I just didn't get them. But I that's fine because I didn't feel it was impenetrable. It wasn't like you had to be heavily invested in Star Wars and in all the lore for that stuff to make sense.
You say this as if that was a problem in the previous movie. Was it a problem? Or you're just saying that I'm glad that that's not happening?
It's a thing I can see easily happening when there's so much there. And I can't bring examples to mind there right now, but it's a thing you do see in other films, like, you know, knowing winks to you know, bonus stuff for the real hardcore fans, but you can do it to an extent where it becomes impenetrable unless you are a hardcore fan.
That is certainly not the case here.
Yeah.
They did it well. They did it really well. So, what do we have? We have Forrest Whitaker. Oh, yeah, Grand Moff Tarkin. We got to talk about Grand Moff. Am I pronouncing that right? Grand Moff Tarkin?
Grand Moff is his title, I think.
Yeah. So...
James Tarkin.
It's
probably not that.
John Tarkin. So, Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia, make an appearance.
Yes.
In this film.
Yeah.
And they are entirely CG, and it is quite difficult to spot it.
Yeah.
It takes a good bit of time with Tarkin where you're like, oh yeah, he's not real. Because they really nailed it. Like,
so I'm pretty sure Peter Cushing's dead.
Like, yeah, because he was old in the original series. Or the original trilogy.
Yeah, well, he was only in the first one, wasn't he?
Was he only in the first one? I can't remember.
I don't know if Grand Moff Tarkin was in the others.
It's been a long time. If we're going to make this an annual tradition where we go and watch Star Wars, I'm going to need to rewatch all the films before coming up.
Oh, he died in 1994, so yeah, he's super dead.
And so usually this sort of CG work falls into uncanny valley territory, but like they did a really good job. Like, it's not perfect by any means, and maybe it's something we'll look back on in, like, 10 years and be like, wow, the CG wasn't great there.
Mm-hmm.
But enough to suspend disbelief, like. I was really impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very impressed with that. Because that could have been, if that wasn't executed correctly, that would have been seen as, like, terrible lip service in a way. So I was very impressed.
I thought he was done well. Of course, and I said this to you yesterday, that has been done before. And this is about 4 or 5 years ago in The Social Network. The two characters in it, the Winklevoss twins, and they're played by 2 different actors, but the first guy's face is CG'd onto the second guy's face.
I thought about that, right? And maybe that was mind-blowing at the time, but that doesn't seem like that takes that much technology, because you can do that on Snapchat, can't you?
Yeah, but not properly.
But like what I'm saying, it's not that far of a leap from Snapchat to that. Whereas an entire CG person.
I don't think the person was entirely CG'd, were they? Like Cushing, I thought, or Tarkin, I thought it was just like they did it with someone's face.
Oh, I got the impression that it was all CG.
Maybe.
Well, if it is all CG, that's even better. Like the fact that we're having a discussion about whether or not it is the kind of speaks testament of how well they did there. I don't know. I'd have to watch it again.
Maybe.
When I think of...
And of course, Tom Hardy in Legend, because he plays... Although he does the whole performance of both of them. Basically, Tom Hardy plays both of the Cray twins in a film that came out about a year ago. A little more than a year ago. So he's playing twins, but they have scenes together.
Yeah, but sure, that's been done since like the dawn of cinema, like.
But it's done really, really well. Like, it's not like...
Okay. I with my limited editing, I can make it so that Edgar appears like he's on screen with another Edgar. Like, this is not difficult stuff to do.
I think that there must have been some kind of advanced trickery for the way it's done.
Like, if there was a scene where Tom Hardy hugs Tom Hardy, that's difficult.
Yeah,
but if it's a scene where Tom Hardy talks to Tom Hardy, that's not
difficult. No, they have they physically touch each other and stuff.
Okay,
yeah, I think so. Anyway,
that's interesting. Do you know who Wheezy Waiter was? Is
the name
Wheezy Waiter?
YouTuber?
Yes, obviously.
I think so. Yeah. He
appears on Crash Course sometimes. He does the politics thing.
Is his channel just kind of like really fun and goofy, and it's like
yeah. He's like a goofy daily vlogger, but doesn't really show. I don't know.
I know. Yeah, I think another guy you mean.
There was one time, and he does his shtick is that he has clones.
Yeah.
So there was one time he threw an item. One of his clones threw an item to himself, and there was no obvious cutaway.
Wow.
And both people were on screen, and you could track the path of the item the entire time, and it broke the comment section. People were like, how is this? This is witchcraft. And It's like, I missed it first time, and it's only through the comments that I went back and looked and went, huh. And I couldn't figure out how it's done. Cool. Which is really, it's rare that you, if you're into making YouTube videos, or any videos at all, that you come across a scenario where you're like, yeah, I don't understand that. That's actually magic. Mm-hmm. Like, that was cool. But anyhow, Grand Moff Tarkin and Leia, really good CG. Don't know how it's going to age, but it's suspended disbelief, which is great. Do you have any negative points about the
film? The thing about Saul just like, oh, well, I guess I'll just die, that kind of annoyed me. What else? Jyn seemed to really quickly forgive Cassian for, they had a fight because Cassian had been ordered to kill her dad, and he doesn't in the end. That's grand, but she seems to forgive him very quickly. It's just kind of like they have a big fight about it, and then it's like, oh, it's fine. We're not going to be angry about that anymore.
I was okay with that because they have a fight prior to invading space Dubai. So I think the invasion of space Dubai probably took priority.
Yeah.
So that, I'm sure if the movie continued an extra hour after the point at which it finished, and the war settled down, then they'd be back to fighting. I didn't have too much problem like that, but I can see where you come from.
Yeah.
I have very little, very, very little to say bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm usually the negative one in this podcast, who hates everything. But
I just like liking things.
You do like liking things, whereas I like not liking things. But it's a great film. I don't know, the thing you said about space Orientalism.
Yeah.
It kind of bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I can put this into coherent words, but it's kind of like, we need it to be space-like. So let's make it Middle Eastern. It was a bit...
Yeah, well, I think it's we need it to be exotic.
Yeah, but...
And that's a thing they've done for ages, like, is Tatooine and...
Yeah, but, like, well, no, hang on, but Tatooine in the original thing wasn't... I didn't get the impression it was overtly Middle Eastern. Like, I know the buildings look Middle Eastern, and I know it's on a desert planet, but it's not like people dressed ostensibly Middle Eastern, or that you'd have things like a souk, like, or that you'd have like incense, a lot of incense. You know what I mean? Like the stereotypical things we associate with the Middle East. Whereas I think Jeddah was a little bit too much like that.
Yeah, it was much closer.
Too Middle Eastern. It's kind of like, I don't know. It feels sort of cheap, and also, can you not just come up with something entirely different?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me. I'd be inclined to agree. The part of it is that Jeddah is meant to be a holy city, so it's directly inspired by
Mecca
and Jerusalem. And
that was
like
a bit ham-fisted, I thought. It's a little bit ham-fisted, and then Jeddah is extremely close to a prominent Saudi Arabian city.
I think it's just called Jeddah.
I think there is a city called Jeddah.
Differently.
Yeah, I think so. So it's a bit too close. I thought it was a bit tactless, like, but that's just the adult to me. Like, I'm sure kids would just be like, I don't care. Like, it's great. It's a big holy city and lots of sand and yay. I will say though, the geography of Jeddah was great. Like this sort of like islands of rock protruding out of like the base sand was really good.
Big mesas and stuff.
And you see, look, this is the thing. Like, again, much more interesting than New Tatooine. What's New Tatooine from? See, we don't even know now. We don't even care now. But New Tatooine in episode 7 was just Tatooine. It was a desert planet. But this had something more unique to it. So much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
Agreed.
Should I bring up the point about Rey for the third time, or is that too risque for the podcast?
If you want.
So, one of the problems I had with 7 was the Rey character. And I disliked her because I felt she was a bit Mary Sue-ish.
Sexist.
All the hate comments. There was a lot of real nasty stuff written about her.
Of course, yeah.
And it's silly. And I'm not in that camp at all. But she was a bit overpowered for me. A bit too awesome at everything.
Mm-hmm.
A bit too superhero-y. And I just thought it was like, I don't know, faux lip service to equality in a way. I don't know if that's strong, but I kind of would have liked a more realistic and nuanced depiction of a strong female lead.
I see what you mean, yeah. So instead of just making someone who's perfect, make someone who's the same, like, equally powered and equally flawed as comparable male characters.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, if we think about the idea that people will watch these films and they will see some of themselves in it, they will use people like that as role models. You want to show that, like, it's okay to be flawed. You don't want to paint the image for a little girl watching Star Wars, say, to be like, you must be perfect. So, you want to be like, you can be flawed and you can overcome flaws. Like, that's a healthy thing, I think, to discuss, and not just, like, present this image of perfection. But in any case, I don't know, that's what I feel. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I'm open to debate about that completely. But I felt Jyn was everything I wanted Rey to be. She was like a real badass character, a real, like, fighter and stuff like that, but she wasn't, like, super amazing at everything.
Yeah. And
she just came across as a real likable, normal human person.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was great. So I think if episode 7's Rey could have been more like Jyn, I would have been much more on board with The Force Awakens. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
completely sexist.
I would need to rewatch 7 to like get to see, with that in mind, to see like whether I agree with that analysis of Rey, and then I need to compare it to the other films. Like, is she actually that much better than, say, Luke?
Yeah.
Or is she actually that much better than... Well, I guess she hasn't turned out evil yet, like Anakin, but you know what I mean. Should
we compare it to those films? Because they were written in a different time. Like, surely we should expect more of the films now than... Like, we don't want it to equal the original trilogy, and we want to be better than the original trilogy. We want to write stronger and better characters.
Let me think about... I see what you're saying. I think, though, if...
Bill's very tired, audience.
No, I'm not tired. I'm just trying to make sure I say exactly what I mean. I think if we're going to have this criticism of it, then we should also... So I can't figure out how to phrase this at all.
I've broken Bill, folks. I've broken Bill.
Error, argument not found. Well, I think there would still be an issue there if people didn't criticize Luke for being... If Luke was as perfect as that, then you'd have to criticize... Nowadays, you'd have to say, well, the series has always been... The series has always had ridiculous, overpowered, perfect characters. Mm-hmm. And times are different, but I think you'd still need to discuss it in the context of the series.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know why that was so hard for me to express.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think, folks, Bill is actually very tired.
I'm not tired. I can say the alphabet backwards.
So, what else? What else you got on? Anything else you want to bring up on Rogue One? First time we have a jungle-like environment, I think, in Star Wars. Oh no, we have the jungle planet Endor. Dubai, space Dubai. That is very jungle.
It's not jungle. It's beachy.
I thought it was very jungly. I don't know. I got the impression it was jungly. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But Endor is...
It was actually filmed in the Maldives, I think.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, was there any of Ireland?
Yeah, Lamu Atoll in the Maldives was Scarif. No, we've got so the Maldives, Iceland. I think that was the opening scene.
See, I thought the opening might have been Ireland, but then all that black soil made me suspicious.
It's Iceland apparently. Jordan was used for Jeddah. That makes sense because I was thinking of like Petra and stuff when I saw it. The Canary Wharf tube station was a chase scene in an Imperial base. So that was I think that's it. That the main locations. Like what about the middle? The planet they went to in the middle.
Which one was that now?
The rainy planet where it was night.
It's fine. We don't really experience much of that planet. It's not hard to tell. Like it was okay. Some of the climbing around the rocks was a bit implausible. Like lash and rain, you're on an escarpment, and everyone's fine. It's kind of like someone's gonna die just from falling off the thing.
Also, after you.
And the complete lack of handrails once again in Star Wars is hilarious. Like
it's the first film that there hasn't been a Jedi in.
The Shaolin monk guy, was he some sort of like Jedi precursor?
I don't think he was force sensitive. I think he was just like a martial artist. I thought that was really cool. He's just really cool. He's just Zatoichi essentially.
I don't know what Zatoichi is.
Blind Japanese swordman film. So he's a blind guy who's a badass swordsman. Yeah,
I don't know. So this is in between 3 and 4. Okay, yeah. So the Jedis or Jedi?
Jedi is plural, I think.
Okay, so the Jedi all go AWOL at the end of 3.
Well,
no, they all go AWOL at the end. They all go. They're all dead, and the ones who are remaining go AWOL at the end of 3. So the universe has forgotten to some extent of about Jedi.
Well, there's a big Jedi temple on Jeddah. I think that was a Jedi temple.
Right, but it's not common to have Jedi around.
They're not common. Yeah.
So he was a member of like the Jedi religion, but just not a Jedi.
I guess so.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Actually, rediscovering Jediism in a way after all the Jedi are gone. You are a devotee. Yeah. A devotee of the Jediism. That's interesting. I like that. He struck me as being somewhat Jedi. I half expect him to whack out a lightsaber. Right. Like his little rod had a little glowy bit at the end, and I was like, we're getting very close to lightsaber. But I'm glad they didn't, which is awesome. And it made for when Vader flashed the lightsaber at the end, it made that a lot cooler. Yeah. Because one of the criticisms, obviously, of the prequels is that it was lightsaber-tastic all the time.
That's not a criticism. That's awesome.
So you haven't seen 1. Have you seen 2? Episode 2?
I've seen 2 and 3, yeah.
Yeah. Grievous with his lightsabers. He had 4? 4. He had 4 lightsabers. Yeah. One dude, 4 lightsabers.
Yeah, but he was like a cyborg. So he had like special combat software and like he'd taken them off like Jedi that he'd killed and stuff. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Really? Oh, I thought that was awful. That second movie is... Oh, we talked a lot about this last night, but I find that second movie just to be one of the worst pieces of filmmaking I've ever experienced. And I'm somewhat sympathetic to the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
The prequel trilogy. Like, I think 1 is a really fun movie. I think 3 is dark and interesting. But I think 2 is awful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. What do you think of Vader's appearance? Everything fine on that end?
I mean, I didn't find him particularly scary, but maybe that's because Vader is so kind of played at this stage that we all know everything about Vader, and there's nothing to be experienced.
The Force choke doesn't really have the same effect as it did way back then. But no, I think they played him really well.
His scene at the very end was brilliant. I thought
with the really where he starts fighting everyone.
Yeah, where he's fighting the rebel soldiers.
See, this is a cool thing, right? So if you watch the original trilogy, it's really stilted the fighting, and it was less about the fighting, it was more about the actual like battle of characters as opposed to fighting.
Yeah.
But I really like in this new ones the way that they've kind of have found a nice middle ground between like not over the top stylistic Phantom Menace style fighting and not really stagnant, sort of just standing there and kind of whacking. Vader's thing was good. Like there was enough movement in him to suggest how angry he was and things, but not so much that you're kind of like, well, hang on now, he hasn't really got all his limbs. So I think they pitched it really, really well. And it was just a badass. Like, he's a total badass. It was cool at the end, the way you're rapidly swept up and taken into the beginning of A New Hope.
Yes.
Which was awesome.
So, again, if you haven't seen it, the film ends with the characters broadcasting the plans for the Death Star to the Rebel Alliance fleet, and then they're on like some kind of flagship, and the plans are put on a disc and like
a proper like CD, which is
or like, kind of like an old like zip drive, and the rebels or the Imperial soldiers come on, and then Vader comes on, stormtroopers and Vader come on, and they're like trying to pass it down the corridor, and like they're getting slaughtered, and they're just about keeping it out of the reach of the Empire, and then they bring it up like through an airlock, and it's onto the blockade runner that gets stopped at the beginning of A New Hope. So I don't know how long that ship has been on the run. So this film could end like literally could be moments before. Yeah. Literally moments. It could be a couple of weeks or whatever, but it could just be moments.
The impression I got was moments. I was kind of like, I felt like I need to go and watch 4 now because of the continuity.
Although, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we've got a flaw like applying too much kind of scientific thought to Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shaky premise to start on.
But, right, it would be quite easy to get those plans again if you have faster than light travel. Right? Yeah. It's been broadcast from a huge radio dish, right? So you just like wait a week and then jump into hyperspace somewhere that's a light week away from the planet it's been broadcast from.
Yeah, they don't just stop. Like, that's weird. Like, wait, did they really need to have the broadcast element? Could they have made it so that you don't need to broadcast? You just had to steal the physical item, and the physical item had to be brought to the ship. Could do that.
I mean, there's no way that you could make something that couldn't be broadcast, surely.
No, but what I'm saying is, could they have written it in such a way that they don't include the broadcast element? Because, you said, nerds like us might pick it apart and be like, you can't really do that. Maybe they haven't figured out, maybe because it's like a science fantasy setting, they haven't quite figured out how communications like that work. Maybe it's the Force. Maybe they're all like, it's the Force just makes it happen, and they don't understand, like, electromagnetism. They don't understand any of that. I don't know.
A friend of mine was talking to me the other day, actually, and I said to him that I'd give this a mention on the podcast.
Cool. Hi, Bill's friend.
Do people in Star Wars ever get jet lag?
Do they ever get jet lag?
From all like the jumping around in hyperspace between planets and stuff, and the change in the diurnal cycle, and does that ever come up?
No. Well, it doesn't come up in the movies at least, but that's interesting. Why would you get jet lag from jumping across the universe?
Well, because you're going to like somewhere where it's going to be a different
day length.
Right,
yeah. Okay.
And also from like the fatigue of travel and all that kind of thing.
Oh, well, I don't think the fatigue of travel, like what do you mean fatigue of travel? Like the travel takes exactly 0 time. Like
Well, like you have to leave the planet and then...
Oh, so
I don't think hyperspace does take exactly zero time. There's stuff like set in hyperspace.
We did this in an earlier podcast about galaxies. It's something like you can get across from one end of the galaxy to the other in a month.
All right.
So it's not a long time. Not a long time. Considering like the Milky Way in Star Trek, it's like to get from the Delta Quadrant to the corner of the XY axis of the Alpha Quadrant is like years. How many years did Voyager? Voyager said they'd be on it for years.
Yeah. And they were meant to be, it was meant to be like 70 years in Voyager.
Yeah, and they're going at like high warp.
Yeah.
So Star Wars is a small universe, very small universe. But that's interesting. Yeah. If you're used to being on a 24-hour planet, you go on something that's 60. But you know, this is interesting, right? Because I don't have the data.
Or like even if you turn up like where it's like you leave Tatooine and you go to Coruscant.
Coruscant, Jesus.
Coruscant. And then it's like night wherever you end up on Coruscant. And like, does that never mess people up?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I wonder. And then of course there's also planets that will have like day and night sides permanently. Like if you have to go visit a tidally locked planet, that has to screw with you.
Yeah, but they're hardly usually not going to be habitable, sure.
Yeah, but this is Star Wars planet.
Oh yeah.
Like in Hardfire, yeah, you'd have to live in the Twilight Zone around the edge.
And even then, the weather would be shocking.
The weather would be shocking. Do you know why, Bill? Can you tell me why? Have you been doing your research on science fantasy, science hard sci?
Well, no, just like one side is constantly getting heated, so.
The weather would be terrible. But yeah, in Star Wars, you can totally see there being a big, massive metropolitan city on the dark side. But yeah, that's interesting about the jet lag. It's not something that's been explored.
I mean, I guess it doesn't really make, it's not really all that relevant to a series about
astro conflict,
space samurai wizards. So,
do you know why no idea is actually born out? Like hardly any ideas come from nothing completely. Is there a precursor to Jedi somewhere? Where did he pull that from? Like, obviously you can go like martial arts films and things like that, but like I'd be surprised if the lightsaber was first invented by George Lucas.
I'm sure there's like laser swords or at least energy swords and other things.
I'd imagine so, yeah. Be interesting to see the etymology of that, where it came from.
Here's the thing. I mean, I do have reservations about the Rebel Alliance.
Okay, their ethics, like their motivations.
Well, it's just like it's all a bit theological. Like they seem like they might be a little bit of like kind of a religious fundamentalist army, because like they were all charged, may the Force be with you and stuff, like, which is. Well, it's a bit weird.
It's slightly better than the Empire, though.
No, yeah, well, obviously. Obviously I'd choose like a benevolent theocracy over literal planet-murdering fascism.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Just as a matter of pure pragmatism. But, as a matter of idealism, I'd have my reservations about the...
But it's space religion. It's entirely different. It's totally different than Earthbound theology. Space theology. It's great. Speaking of the Empire, I think both you and I had a little giggle at the location where we first meet Darth Vader.
Yeah, Space Mordor.
Space Mordor!
What planet was that meant to be, I wonder?
I don't know, but it's hilarious. So for the listeners who haven't seen it, like we come to this this planet and it is effectively Mordor, so like scorched earth. There's lava everywhere. And then on the precipice of a cliff, there is a big giant tower, a la the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, it was really close like Sauron's tower.
I even did a double check and looked at the distance. Like, is there a second one? Oh, okay. That was funny. That was weird. One thing I love, though, and it kind of gets the child in me going every single time, is just... I love the spread of locations in Star Wars. I love the way it goes from lava planet to water world to nighttime rainy planet and then the jungle planet. You're like, yes, I love that stuff. It's really cool. One of the reasons why I really liked, when I was younger, Phantom Menace, because I felt like I was being taken away on this not intergalactic but interplanetary journey. Like you had the underwater kingdom. And then you had the leafy forest, and then you have the big built-up city, and it was super interesting for me. And I still maintain Phantom Menace is the best of
What's the big built-up city? Is that just the city on Naboo?
Yeah, just the city. Yeah, once you're in the city, you're kind of like you're in city mode. Like it's obviously not Coruscant.
Yeah, there's no city planet.
There's no city planet.
Ecumenopolis.
Ecumenopolis.
Yeah.
This came up before.
Yeah, it's a planet-spanning city.
It's a megalopolis.
But over an entire city.
Ooh.
Over an entire planet.
What happens if you had a city that spanned 2 planets? Same, like this, like imagine it was just the same governance. What would that be?
Well, it would just be like 2 cities.
No, but ran by the same thing.
But like
what happened? Like imagine there is like a planet and it has like a Trojan companion, and they were just kind of like, well, it's in the same orbit. This is all governed by the same thing.
Well, that's like having a country that's 2 cities on 2 different islands. Like they'd still be 2 different cities. I
just want another crazy word. That's what I was fishing for.
There is a binary ecumenopolis.
Binary ecumenopolis.
There is some setting. I can't remember what it is. I think it might be a manga where the Earth and the Moon like have both grown to the size that they have like encompassed. Like stuff has been constructed on the Earth and the Moon, and it's just like one huge mass that encompasses both bodies.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's like urban spread, but through space.
I think so, yeah.
Huh. There was a little bit of that in Rogue One. I didn't like...
The two asteroids at the start. I thought that was class.
But they were joined by buildings. Like, how does that give you structure and integrity to hold the asteroids together? Unless of course, space material. Like, some hand-wavy...
Yeah, tritanium or something.
Yeah, some unobtainium. But, like, I was a bit like... I don't know about that one.
Well, it could be that it was a long asteroid that was hollowed out, or like was excavated that way, or it could be 2 that were joined together, like, and then constructed along that cable.
So, like a what do you call those weights you do bicep things with? I don't know what they're called.
Dumbbells.
Dumbbells. So, like dumbbell asteroids.
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay. I don't know. I kind of was like, it's weird to say that you were taken out of it in Star Wars. It was kind of taken out. I was like, I don't know about that. It reminded me of the book series I read when I was very young that got me into fantasy. What was it called? The Edge Chronicles. Did you ever read the Edge Chronicles?
No.
There was a floating city in it called, I think it's like Scanterfrax or something like that.
Okay.
And I remember the description of it in my brain. The image that was formed was kind of like that asteroid, and then immediately I was like, "Oh, this is a kid's thing now. This is not. Right. I can't get into this. This is now a kid's thing." I'm going to
Google the Edge Chronicles.
Great book, great series of books. If anyone, well, actually, if you're above 10, they're not going to appeal to you. But
yeah, illustrated by Chris Riddell. Yeah, and I'm familiar with and
the illustrations are gorgeous.
Yeah, he's a marvelous artist.
So good. It was on for Leaving Cert one time.
Was
it? It was one of the comprehension things. Leaving Cert being our final exam.
Our end of school system exams. Yeah. The Art Historian's a big fan of these, I think.
The what?
The Art Historian is a big fan of these.
Really?
Yeah.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
They really are.
Is this the series that has Banderbears?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think we meet a Banderbear in the first book, Beyond the Deep Woods, I believe it is.
Yep.
Yes! They were great books. And like it had, my thing about Sky Pirates? It had Sky Pirates. Love it. Like floating cities, buoyant rocks, like rocks that have buoyancy to them.
Yeah.
And it's be tied down. And then Sky Pirates and these like mysterious twilight woods where everything's a bit creepy. Oh, so good. So good. And Twig was a great character. I love those books. I actually incidentally got into Discworld because I was trying to re-find the Edge Chronicles. And I was like, I remember it being, there was like, you could fall off the end of the world. So I went into like a bookshop and seen Terry Pratchett and went, oh, okay, that's those are the books. And I read them and I was like, I don't remember them being like this, but I really like this. So I discovered Terry Pratchett entirely accidentally because of that.
That's brilliant.
Which is really cool. And Pratchett, another great author.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so anything else about Rogue One? The music was...
music was pretty good.
The music was forgettable. More of a different opinion here. I have major qualms with current Hollywood music. I don't know if you want me to get into it, but it was a bit like... There's nothing new in the music that was interesting to me. There's like, we heard Vader's theme slow down, and that was good. But it's like, at some stage we're going to need to have another striking sort of team.
Yeah.
Which is not something we're like I don't know, did they have one for Kylo Ren? I think they just played Vader. Like, it seems that any bad person gets a Vader team to indicate that it's bad. But we need to... Actually, no, I will get into it. It's like a systematic problem in Hollywood at the moment where just nothing original is being made. Because do you hear about the epidemic of temp tracking? So what happens, stop me if this is boring, but what happens is editors will cut together drafts of a film using temporary music that they've just taken from another film they enjoyed, and they like that emotion. And the problem is that when the composer comes in to make the actual score, is that very often the editor and the director will say, can you just make us that, but legal? So we're not going to get sued. So keep the same beats, the same emotion, the same tonality, that sort of thing. And so what's happening in a lot of Hollywood now is that this is just a regurgitation of like a handful of different tracks. You don't have like whopping massive new themes that you can instantly sing.
Yeah.
Which is a huge problem. I think even in Star Wars, it's the same thing. We're not hearing great new music. And the test for this is, if you're into Marvel, can you sing back any of Marvel teams? And the answer to that is nearly always a resounding no. Even though there's a new Marvel movie out nearly all the time, you think there'd be plenty of opportunity for that music to riddle its way into common thing, but no, because just like the lack of imagination in it. And I'm going to keep going. Because I've got to think. And this also spills over into The Force Awakens. Like, my criticism last year was the lack of imagination, this regurgitation of old ideas. Hollywood seems to be really stagnant and doesn't seem to want to do something daring and creative that could fail. You know, it's like, we'll go safe. We know that if we rehash A New Hope, it'll be good. People will love it. And we know that if we like give them the same tunes they're used to hearing, it'll be familiar and we'll love it. Mm-hmm. And the same color casting, like if we give them blue and orange, everyone loves Transformers, it'll be grand. But so there's a huge problem I have with that, and it kind of highlighted itself somewhat in Rogue One. Sorry, that was a long. That's
okay. I see what you're saying. I'm not sure I entirely agree with the thing about the music.
I'll put a link to a really interesting video essay about it.
Okay.
Like, someone does an analysis and they cut the various things together, and like, it's pretty compelling, I think, if you look into it. And
I think there are good composers there, like Bear McCreary.
But the problem is, though, the good composers, like, I'm not saying that there's no good composers.
Yeah.
All the good composers are forced to make this happen. And there's various documentaries you can find where good composers talk about this.
Yeah.
And they talk about, like, the torment of the temp track. I
suppose he's more of a TV composer than a film composer.
Another further problem as well is that, like, the beats of the film have been made to the temp music. So even if you go make something completely different, it's like, well, you can't do that because you have to recut the entire thing.
Right.
So they're being really forced into it. So, so I don't know. It's not good. Film music is not in a good place, I don't think, at the moment. But so I was a bit disappointed to hearing just like slowed down version of Vader's team. That's the big musical moment in the film. You're like, nah, that doesn't cut it for me.
I'm not sure how much I agree with or care about this idea that there's no originality in Hollywood. I've become skeptical of it recently.
I'm less interested in your agreeing and more interested in your caring. Why would you not care about it? I don't understand. That seems there's a disconnect there.
I think it may be overstated, and like were people complaining in the 50s when like someone had made like the 100th Frankenstein movie?
I'm sure they were.
I don't think so they were. And do people complain about this in theatre? It's like, oh god, the theatre's doing more bloody Shakespeare. How many times do we need to see Shakespeare and Ibsen? Like, just because you're doing something that's been done before doesn't mean you can't do something new with it. Yeah,
but the problem is that there isn't something new being made with it. Like, everything seems to be following like the well trodden road, the formulaic sort of thing. There's nothing. I can't name a film in recent years that has been like a box office success that is like innovative.
Inception.
That's like 6-7 years ago. It's a long time ago.
Okay.
You know, like,
people were saying this stuff then as well, though. People were saying, oh, it's all superhero movies and rehashes and reboots.
Yeah, and even if Inception is a a counter argument to my point.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't render my point invalid. Like, sure, yeah, every so often there's going to be a film that comes up, but what's important is the majority of what is being served to us derivative in nature. And then
I don't think the majority of anything in film has ever been innovative, though. Like, 90% of everything is rubbish.
that is true. 90% of everything is rubbish. I don't know. Maybe because I was a kid of the 90s, I thought films in the 90s were an awful lot more diverse and there's more to them because I was a kid and didn't understand broader context. That could be the case. I don't know. I've yet to think about it. But there is something new, I think. I don't really have empirical data to back this up, but it seems there's something new to this like massive franchisation of things. Like this never-ending franchise. Like before, like Star Wars, the original trilogy, 3 movies. Mm-hmm. That was the franchise. But now it's like, how many superhero movies?
Well, it was the franchise, and then there was the comic books, and then there was like,
yeah,
there was expanded universe from the get-go.
Right, but it's built over into different forms. But what I'm saying is, like, I think there's a new thing where a company buys another company and goes, we will make a movie a year about this. Like, I think that's weird. I think that's strange.
I really like it. I really like the idea of having like a living, evolving universe like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where actions have consequences between movies.
Okay. Yeah, that's a valid point. But everything seems to just be very formulaic. It's just, I don't know.
I don't think the Marvel films are formulaic.
What I've seen of the superhero movies, they seem to be incredibly dull. And they just the same worn, trodden path. Well, then every so often, like, I don't know, Iron Man meets up with someone else. And it's like, oh my god, Iron Man is meeting up with Batman. Isn't that hilarious? Or isn't that great? And it's like, no.
I would disagree.
I'm not interested.
I mean, like, the 2 Thor films, the first 2 Thor films are different genres. The first Thor film is a science fiction film, the second Thor film is a fantasy film. Or maybe the other way around.
Okay.
Like, they're doing different things. The Captain America film, the original one, the Captain America film is a really rubbish, but it is a war film. It's a World War II film. And then
I've seen that one, yeah.
Winter Soldier is a spy movie. It's like a James Bond film.
Yeah, but
they're telling different kinds of stories.
But this sounds all a bit like committee design stuff. Like, what should we give the kids to come to the cinema? Let's make a spy movie for them. Like, it does. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't get the impression that there's like actual artists working on these things and like really making something of integrity. It just seems like really making something that is this massive behemoth of a thing that will continuously attract people to come to the cinema. Like movies, counterpoints to those movies that I don't think could exist in the current climate would be like the likes of WALL-E, for example. A movie where there's no dialogue or fighting or anything for like 40 minutes. Like those kind of special cinematic moments, they happen less and less. Or like Winter's Bone, that's a great film. Like these
are recent films.
WALL-E's not recent, man.
WALL-E's only 10 years old.
Only? But time moves so quickly, like.
But I don't think Hollywood was that different 10 years ago.
Well, see, I think there's where we differ, I think. I think this dawn of this new acquisition age where you acquire a brand and it's just like the intent is endless movies. I think that is new. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. But I seem to remember before it was kind of like you'd make a sequel if the original did well and you could keep it going. You never set out from the get-go to just make endless ones. And I think that's inherently different, where you live in an inherently different zeitgeist at the moment. But I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Because this is like, I don't have a study to back it up. This is just my feelings from what I see listed in cinemas. So, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what listeners think.
Yeah. I think maybe we're agreeing a little bit more than we seem to be. It's just that I'm more cynical about it, like from the start. Well, it's rubbish anyway, so it was just as rubbish before. Yeah,
and also bear in mind that I spent a good deal of maybe 5 and 10 years ago watching nothing but independent movies. So maybe that's clouded. Go on, say it.
Hipster! Hipster alert.
But like from watching all those movies and then stopping because I just don't have the time to seek out all these things. Maybe that's clouding my judgment because I'm thinking before it was all independent movie everywhere, which maybe it probably wasn't. I don't know. I don't know. But I kind of wish Hollywood would be more like independent movies. Make daring content that's like thought-provoking, really thought-provoking, like proper, like not just like get people in seats, but proper like causes us to like question our assumptions and things like that. You know, what you want art to do.
I mean, sometimes, but like, you know, what's wrong with just being entertained?
Yeah, 100% agree. But what we're arguing over here is the percentage of thought-provoking to just like frivolity.
Right.
Like, you need both, definitely. But what I'm saying is bad is that everything seems to be just like, let's just entertain me.
Can Hollywood be thought-provoking, really, though? Like, something that meaningfully, could something that size capitalistically meaningfully be thought-provoking rather than...
You could make a strong argument that you have to go to indie film for that to do that. And I realise it sounds so hipster. But
and I don't necessarily think there's a problem there. They serve different roles. Like, one just churns out, like, entertainment, and one is like...
You have to watch it 10 times because you can't understand what they say first time around. Like that sort of stuff, like the concept of having to watch a film twice to get it doesn't happen in Hollywood. Like there are loads of independent films I've watched and been like,
Did it ever?
Did it ever?
Yeah.
Don't know. Probably not. That's your point.
And that's kind of where I'm coming from this. Like, it's like, I feel also a lot of people who say stuff like this are the kind of people who think, you know, oh, no good music was made after 1990 or whatever arbitrary date they choose, and culture is so terrible now. And
I find that wrong in the music sense, because I still think there is really good music we made.
Yeah, I know, I completely agree. It just it seems to feed into this similar kind of idea that, like, fetishized nostalgia.
Yeah, fetishizing nostalgia. I'm aware of the fetishizing nostalgia thing, the tendency to do that, and I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to like analyze that correctly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not happy with it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Rogue One episode turned into Edgar's descent against.
But I guess, you know, on the other hand, they are kind of engaging in fetishized nostalgia by making Star Wars.
Yeah, that's true.
So you can't win.
What did you think about the like the aesthetics of how it was placed? Like, there's no crawl and things like that in Rogue One. Fine with that? You're totally cool with being like it being like explicitly a separate deal, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. It's not main sequence. It's another story.
This has made me think that these Rogue One stories, or these anthology stories, could be much, much better than the original one, because we discussed at the cinema yesterday about like the spoilers, the concept of having like nearly the whole cast die at the end is like so refreshing, isn't it? Like in a mainstream movie, like big blockbuster movie, to just like everyone dies.
Especially Vader. Yeah.
But that was really refreshing, like.
Turns out we're all the Death Star. And we're all already dead.
There's an independent film waiting to happen. But that was cool. Jyn and... I keep thinking it's Lando.
Cassian.
Jyn and Cassian just die. That's great.
Yeah.
So happy for that. And then Forrest Whitaker's dead. The Shaolin monk guy is dead. Yeah. His buddy with the red canister on his back died.
I liked him. I liked the heavy dude. It was Zhang Wen. But like, he was clearly, like, if it was a video game, he was clearly the heavy character with the machine guns and the rockets.
He was the barbarian. He was Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. Did you get that reference?
I would have never thought of Barrett as a barbarian.
Really?
Because he's not melee. He's got a handgun, like a hand. His hand is a gun, not a.
Yeah, but he's a big lad that causes damage, like.
Yeah, but I didn't think of... I think of barbarian in very kind of, like, physical terms rather than ranged attacks.
Well, hang on then. Let's stick it off Star Wars. Is there a barbarian in 7? Does 7 have a barbarian? 7 doesn't have a barbarian. Because your man Cloud... How much do you know about 7? Am I just talking...
No, I know all the characters.
Cloud, not barbarian, obviously.
Because he's a bit bishy.
Bishy?
He's a bit, like, kind of pretty.
He's a bit pretty.
Yeah.
We have... None of the female characters could be described as being barbarian.
No, I guess not.
Vincent is like a rogue. He'd definitely be a rogue archetype.
Shapeshifting.
Is he a shapeshifter? Is Vincent a shapeshifter? Like the vampire dude?
Yeah, his limit breaks is that he turns into different classic monsters.
Yes, yeah, I remember that, yeah. And then, obviously, the cat...
Final Fantasy VII spoilers as well, apparently.
I cannot wait for them to make that. Did you hear that they're making it...
The remastered version.
The remastered. Did you hear that they're this could be apocryphal, but I hear that they're making it on separate discs.
So it's going to be massive? Or just for nostalgia that it's going to be on discs?
I would imagine it's money grab, which is awful.
As in separate releases?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that I don't know, but I'm assuming they just charge for these 4 things.
Well, they didn't used to.
Did they not?
Like,
was there a markup on PS2 games or whatever that came with 3 or 4 discs in them?
Not significant. It wasn't 4 times the price anyway.
Oh, right, okay. God, I remember those days. I love telling little people about those days. You know, you have multiple discs and you can't finish the game until you put in the other disc, and people are like, discs? It's hilarious. And then the amusement park creature in 7. He's obviously,
that was weird.
Yeah. He's obviously not.
He's not in it again.
No, but he's not a barbarian.
Oh, sorry.
So I if you were to shoehorn an archetype in there.
Yeah, there's also not like a chef. You know,
that most common of fantasy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, it's yeah.
I always saw him as barbarian.
Okay.
Just because I think I have a much more simplistic view of things. If it was a big muscly lad, he's a barbarian. That's it.
Right.
It's kind of like, not one to think things through, more to like react to violence first. Then barbarian. But anyhow, yeah, so the guy with the red canister, that red canister was weird. It's very strange, I thought.
The one he carried around.
Yeah. It's a bit cumbersome, but his gun was cool. Oh, this is another criticism I have of the movie, and I told this to you yesterday, was the sound design wasn't very Star Warsy.
Right.
Like, the sound of weapons was pretty poor compared to even the prequels, because that was always that's a proper nostalgia thing with Star Wars, hearing the sort of like as like exactly. Well, no lightsabers, but
but it was part of the previous ones.
Exactly. So, but there was the weapon design wasn't that great, I don't think. Sound design. Yes, Bill has a question. He has raised his hand, dear listener.
Do you know that really cute story about Ewan McGregor?
About Ewan McGregor? No.
So he's Obi-Wan in the...
He is Obi-Wan,
in the prequel trilogies.
Can I interrupt you?
No. Yeah, go on.
What do you think of Ewan McGregor in the prequels?
Fine. Well, I like Ewan McGregor. I think he's a fine actor.
Did a great job. Yeah. Like, he's one of the redeeming things of those movies. But anyhow, continue.
When they were filming Phantom Menace, they kept having to reshoot any of his fighting scenes because he would make lightsaber noises as he was fighting, because he was just so excited to be fighting with lightsabers. Isn't that adorable?
And this is why he comes off so well, because he was really into it. He was like, I want to make the best possible Star Wars movie, and he adored it.
Yeah. I love when you hear stuff like that, because he was obviously a huge Star Wars fan and got to be in it. And same with Peter Capaldi becoming the Doctor. He's the current Doctor in Doctor Who.
Oh,
he's like the 12th Doctor, I think. And like, if you look through like the archives of the Doctor Who fan club and stuff, he wrote letters to the various Doctor actors when he was a kid, like when it was originally broadcast, and he's been like a Doctor Who fan his entire life, and then he gets cool. And he's a fine actor, and he gets to become the Doctor.
That's the way to do things. That's definitely the way to do things.
I think is he still the Doctor? I think he is.
I don't do the Doctor Who.
Yeah, I'm
to the dismay of some of our listeners.
I can't get into it really.
Anything else on Rogue One? Do you have anything else to discuss? I think I've gone through my main points. Point out Mordor. Talk about sound design.
Oh yeah, that's it. That planet's called Bactra, I think.
Bactra.
That's the Mordor planet.
The Mordor planet.
It's the one from the end of episode 3.
No. What? No, the one at the end of episode 3, is that not Mustafar?
Oh, maybe that is it, yes.
Yeah. I know, here, Bill.
Sorry, I read this several minutes ago and I've forgotten.
There are many, many lava planets in the universe. You can't just be all like, oh, it's the same place.
No, I read that it was the same place. On the internet, Edgar.
Oh, you read it still? So the one at the end of 3 is not Mustafar. It is Mustafar.
It's the same one as at the end of 3, which I thought it said in this article was called Bactra.
Oh, okay, so it was Mustafar.
It's on Mustafar, yes.
In this one.
The castle is on Mustafar.
The tower?
Yes. I'm going to cut you. Sorry, I was thinking he's floating in a Bacta tank, and that's the word that stuck in my mind.
He's floating in a Bacta tank? What's a Bacta tank? Oh, that's the almost cryogenic.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as Luke is in on Hoth.
Oh, yeah. How are you with Star Wars locations? How are you with Star Wars characters? We had a little bit of a character off in private messages at one stage.
No, we didn't.
We did.
You did. I was just making things up.
For the listeners, I was texting a whole load of obscure Star Wars characters to Bill, and Bill was texting back random names that we just entirely made up, and it was funny because I thought I was confusing Bill, but I came out of the altercation utterly confused. At what point, I probably have to cut this because there's no context, but at what point did you figure out I was on both Star Wars names?
Oh, after like 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah.
You did well. That was good, because I think I opened with some pretty obscure ones.
Hold on.
You're finding them?
I'm finding them, yeah.
I opened with for the listeners, I opened with the classic Jarl Proof, because Jarl Proof is amazing.
Who is Jarl Poof?
He's the guy with the long neck on the Jedi Council.
So you sent me Jarl Poof?
Yeah.
Oh god, it's gone now. C.O. Bibble?
C.O. Bibble, do you know who C.O. Bibble is?
He's in the episode 1.
He's in 1?
He's a politician or something?
He's a politician?
Yeah.
He's famous for a certain line. Now I need to get the line right. Negotiations? They cut off all communications.
Oh dear.
Something like that. Like, it rhymes and it's just not good.
Zam Weasel?
Zam Weasel? Yeah, do you know who that person is? That is the shapeshifter from the start of Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah, actually yes, because we were talking about her yesterday.
Yeah.
Space Jimmy Smiths. I'm going to assume that's a made up one.
Jimmy Smith. No, that's a Star Wars minute joke. Jimmy Smiths is I don't know which character he plays, but he's an actor.
Okay.
And then because he's in Star Wars, he's now Space Jimmy Smiths in the same way of Space Dubai.
Yeah.
And Space Mordor and all that.
What did you see that thing I posted a couple of weeks ago? I suggested that astronauts be allowed to use astronaut as part of their given name.
Like as in astronaut Edgar.
As an astronaut Edgar Grunwald.
Yeah.
Isn't that a great idea?
They're not. Can I just write ASTRO dot and continue on with Edgar Grunwald? I would totally.
I mean, I think it should be a legal thing that you get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think subconsciously that's a joke from 30 Rock that I'd forgotten was a joke from 30 Rock, but I actually think it's genuine.
What other professions could you do that with?
No, the astronaut, you get to go to space. I mean, I think if you get to go to space, you get to remind people about it as much as you want.
Up to a point.
No.
But eventually it'll just be so commonplace that it wouldn't be a thing.
Oh yeah.
And we'd look back on it and be like, wasn't it weird that they celebrated such a thing? It was of societal importance that you were Astro Edgar.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so do you have anything to
anything to add on Rogue One?
Scoundrel. I keep thinking Scoundrel Prime.
Scoundrel Singular. Oh, that's a good one as well. Rapscallion Prime.
Rapscallion Prime. That sounds like a planet. Rapscallion Prime. Home of space Eddie rockets. I don't know. It's some location. Anything else?
No, I think that covers most of it. I didn't have any particular issue with the music. I mean, I thought they used the Vader leitmotif well. I don't tend to pay attention to music in films anyway. That's
interesting.
Yeah.
Considering you're a composer. That's weird.
I'm just paying attention to the story. The music does its role in the background, but it doesn't do it consciously for me. It's just it does. And I don't emotionally react to music and things anyway, so
that in and of itself is an entire podcast, to be fair. The analysing why you don't emotionally react to music given your chosen field, which I think is hilarious. But
there are exceptions, but as a rule, I don't tend to.
Any music that is in any way associated with Die Hard gets you going.
No.
Nothing else to add.
I don't think so.
I think I'm all out.
I thought how they destroyed the shield around Scarif was pretty cool. Actually, I was grinning like a child at that. I thought that was absolutely wonderful.
So, to explain, they drove a small ship.
Yeah, a Hammerhead Corvette.
That was weird, the Corvette name, because it's an actual car.
But it's also, it's a naval designation, I think.
Oh, it still was weird, though, because I think most people associate it with the car.
Hmm.
But anyhow.
Or Prince.
The Prince Corvette?
No, the singer Prince. He's a song called Little Red Corvette.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
All right. And the vegetable. But anyhow, so... so they drive a Hammerhead... hold on. Drive? Fly.
Pilot.
They pilot...
Steer.
They pilot a Hammerhead Corvette into a destroyer.
Into a disabled Star Destroyer.
Yeah, and they use it, they ram it into another destroyer. It's not disabled, so they disabled the second one.
Yeah.
And then the two destroyers plummet towards the surface of Space Dubai, which is enshrouded in a shield.
Yeah.
And they
crash into the shield gate and generator and stuff.
They crash into the thing that generates the shield, yeah. And then they punch a hole in it.
And it's just dope. It's
which
really
is cool, yeah. Which is really cool. The fight around Space Dubai was a tiny bit prequely. Like a tiny bit, like there's a lot going on screen. Like there was a gazillion TIE fighters that came out of a port at one stage. Remember that?
Yeah, that was great.
There was too many TIE fighters, man. Do you know they had that someone posted up a spoof of the trailer for Episode 7.
Right.
They were like the George Lucas special edition of that trailer, and where they just inserted a whole load of crap on the screen. And one of the gags was that they inserted like 20 TIE fighters into the Millennium Falcon thing. And then I immediately thought of that when I was watching. I was like, there's too many TIE fighters here. Oh,
right.
God, too many TIE fighters.
What did you think of the droid in Rogue One?
Yeah, the droid. That's really cool. Is he an assassin droid? In Clone Wars, they had a droid that was black like that, and from the little I've seen of Clone Wars, they used them as assassin droids,
Could be
special ops sort of thing. His name
K2
was not good.
I don't think so, because
it's like the mountain, and he's big. That's what I got, like K2 the mountain. It's like, oh, okay, that's a bit. Yeah.
I didn't think that at all.
Really?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, he's a security droid.
He's a security droid. So for the listeners who haven't seen it, the big, like 9 foot, something like that,
yeah.
Huge black droid, he had his circuits redone or whatever.
He was reprogrammed.
And he's like Dr. Obvious, but in a really funny way. Not in a Rick Olier sort of Dr. Oh, you don't know reference. And not in a sort of bad, like, move the plot along Dr. Obvious. He was just really cutting and sarcastic. Yeah. And like proper laugh out loud moments. Mm-hmm. In the film by him.
And his very first appearance was cool when when Jen is being liberated from the prison camp and like from the prisoner transport, and the rebel soldiers come in and like undo her handcuffs and stuff, and she beats them up, and she like jumps out the back of the thing, and he just catches her in midair, or he just like puts his hand up and stops her in midair because he's a giant metal robot and she's a human. Bam. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and then he goes, "Congratulations, you're being rescued." And she lies like in pain on the floor. Yeah. And he's unable to like make the connection as to why that might be inappropriate.
I assumed that he could make the connection. And he was just being a jerk.
Oh, you know that one where they're fighting in the streets of Mecca, and they're like, she shoots one of those droids, but it's an Imperial droid.
Yeah.
And then behind that droid is the good guy. Yeah. Like K2, and he's like, "Did you know that wasn't me?" There's some good movies. Also, at the end, I don't know why it's popping in my head, but at the end, like everyone clapped
in the cinema.
I've never been at a movie
like in real life. Not all the characters in the film clap at the end. We saw it, and I clapped, and then no one clapped, and then I stopped, and then someone else clapped, and then everyone started.
I've never seen that before.
Really?
Never been in a cinema where people clapped. And
I think I have.
Didn't happen last time. This is a better film. I think this is objectively a better film. And I don't know if I mentioned this already on this podcast, but I think these could be the more interesting versions of it, because you can kill characters off, you can do bad stuff.
Well, they're a bit limited in their next two choices of the anthology films.
Why?
Well, do you want to know what they're about?
Is this... Yeah, it's spoiler central, so who cares? Yeah.
Okay, well, the first one's going to be about Han, and the second one's going to be about Boba Fett. Yeah,
but why can't they make a movie about Jarl Poof?
Yeah, okay, but in the next two, I'm saying, they're a bit more limited.
Oh, okay.
Like, they can still off some of the characters, but they can't kill them off all, like they did pretty much in this one.
So they can't kill off Han at the end, because...
Yeah.
Spoilers, he's dead. And there's one about Boba Fett. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think that they might not be as successful as Rogue One.
No. There could be a large large thing to do with it. I don't know how many people know that this is not actually the main Star Wars.
I'm not sure.
I reckon there's a massive contingent of people who think this is just Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because I never fails to amaze me what people, like, the ignorance of people. That sounds really harsh, but like not knowing things.
Yeah.
Where it seems so painfully obvious to me, but
I'm on board with the whole project. I think it's a good thing to do. For me, I can't remember if I said this in the recording already. Doing things outside the main sequence, first of all, it gives you story freedom. You can do stuff like you can kill off characters. Yeah. And second of all, it makes the universe feel more real to me. That it's not just about these small groups of people, these like families. Yeah. And especially if it does turn out that like everyone in the sequels is like descended from the original.
What do you think the probability is that the main storyline is going to stick very closely to the original trilogy?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
I'm not entirely hopeful that they'll do something amazing in the next one. Like, we could literally start on an ice planet. And that's going to hurt if we start on an ice planet. Yeah. But I could see it happening. And then, like, because it's so easy to sell, like, you just be like, oh, it's all cyclical. And, you know, that sort of thing. But that fills me with trepidation. And more reason why I think the anthology films are much better.
Yeah.
Much, much better. Clearly, though, they do need to make a Yarl Poof movie.
Sorry, remind me who Yarl Poof is.
The guy with the neck.
The guy with the neck.
Or Kid Fisto. Is he the guy with the... Terrible name. He's the guy with the dreads. He's like the tentacly dread guy in Attack of the Clones, the green fella. He's Kid Fisto, I think.
Doesn't he die?
Yeah, but you can tell it's like his growing up story. Like.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He comes from a broken home and a kid done well on the streets of space...
Chicago. I'm going to Google Yarl Poof to see do I recognise him.
Yarl Poof.
Oh, only vaguely. Okay,
he's very prominent in the Jedi Council because one of the problems with the prequels...
The size of him.
The size of him, yeah. And that they always keep returning to the same locations. So you always see Yarl Poof is in it a lot. I don't know if Yarl Poof... fights in the gladiator arena. Be interesting. I don't think we've seen the long neck guy fight. Huh. Oh, and they also need to make an anthology film about Ben Quadraneros. You know the pod racer guy with the funny potato head?
No.
Oh, you haven't seen one? I'm sorry.
I don't know the pod racers. And I refuse to watch the film.
You know who Sebulba is?
Who?
Sebulba. Sebulba.
No.
Really? I know you haven't seen one, but like that's a character that's kind of has some notoriety to him. You never heard of the guy? Google. They should make an anthology film about him because he was like a real nasty, like gangster. Sebulba.
I know the face.
Yeah, like he was a really interesting character and a really cool design, and like he's a real nasty piece of work. So you can make a real like seedy, gangstery Sebulba anthology movie.
Okay.
They're not going to do that, obviously, because no one's going to touch the prequels.
Yeah.
The closest we'll get is McGregor coming back in. There was talk of getting him in, just to tie everything together, and the fans won't be offended, because everyone loves McGregor, and everyone loves what he did in the prequels.
So here's the thing, there's 8 films.
There's 8 films.
Are R2 and 3PO the only characters that are in all 8 films?
It's likely.
They are in all 8 films, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. They're in all of the original ones.
They are in Phantom Menace.
They are in Phantom Menace.
They get built in Phantom Menace or something.
Yeah, kind of,
yeah.
Well, what one does, like. R2 is fully assembled.
Okay.
C-3PO is not. But yeah.
Does he appear in it?
Yeah, he appears in it. Yeah, he's in it. And then they remain in the...
They're definitely in 3, because they're in the opening sequence of 3. And
they have that
stupid.
No, the opening sequence of 3. What's the opening sequence of 3?
They're on a spaceship and R2 sprays oil on the ground. The
fall over. Oh, God. Oh, it's awful. And then they're also in that terrible sequence in the factory, the bug factory, where R2-D2 has little rockets.
Don't remember that.
Oh, jeez. They must be in all of them. Yeah. And again, I said this earlier, I don't like the way C-3PO the two of them made an appearance in this one.
That didn't bother me too much.
It bothered me. C-3PO is the original trilogy's Jar Jar Binks. He's less racist. But he's there just for like stupid comic relief. And
right.
I'd rather him not being there. There's no point. Like, they could have went down the Wally route in the original one and just have all the beeps and bloops be the only means of communication from R2D2, and then you can just empathize with beeps and bloops. You don't need the translator there. Like, it's just stupid. But anyhow,
I mentioned Peter Capaldi earlier. Have you ever seen
remind me again
the guy who's playing the current Doctor in Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a TV show called The Thick of It? It's a British political satire, kind of, where he plays a government spin doctor.
No, never seen this.
There is a absolutely marvelous clip from it, from one of the later seasons, where he tries to describe Star Wars, but he doesn't know enough about Star Wars. I think you should watch it right now. I think you should watch it, and I should sit beside you and watch it.
Okay. See you in a bit, listeners.
I watched that episode. It's the whole thing is on Netflix. I watched that episode and I had to rewind and watch that 30-second bit about 5 times. Take a good full minute break in between because I just broke myself laughing so much.
R2D2 was a pedal bin.
Yeah, a tinfoil pal and a pedal bin. Yeah,
so good.
I think you should put that in the show notes for any listeners who haven't seen that.
Yeah, totally, will do.
And if you like incredibly foul-mouthed British political satire, I'd highly recommend The Thick of It.
In the thick of it. So yeah, I think that's everything. That's everything. Certainly everything I have on Rogue One.
Yeah.
Do you want to discuss holidays? As in Christmas. Say hi to everyone for Christmas.
Yeah, sure. Have a nice whatever winter festival you celebrate, listeners.
Winterval. Do you hear Winterval? Caused outrage in Britain.
Not sure.
The city of Birmingham was like, we'll have this thing called Winterval around Christmas. And some newspaper, I'm going to say the Daily Mail because it's probably the Daily Mail, took it as an attack on Christmas, usual stuff we can't celebrate Christmas anymore. And it was one of the most apocryphal things ever because Winterval was not like a sort of multicultural version of Christmas that the Birmingham City Council came up with. It was kind of like a collection of events that ran from early November to late January, and they all just put it together under the brand of Winterval because it happened in winter. Winter festival. But the Daily Mail just took it as you're destroying Christmas and completely made up an entirely different narrative. So I like to when people go
change.
Well, yeah, when people go Happy Christmas, I'm like Happy Winterval, and then you always have someone who's like liberal.
Merry happy.
Yeah, there's this whole thing you can't say Merry Christmas.
Who can't?
Apparently that's not Happy Christmas is the more
who cares?
I don't care, but apparently there's a secular thing Merry Christmas is non-secular and Happy Christmas is secular, and
but it's Christmas, so you're not actually really being secular anyway.
I don't care at all. I say Happy Christmas out of habit, but people have been that is the correct way of speaking. I'm I don't think that's entirely true.
You're just saying a nice thing for Christmas to someone.
Can you explain to me, around this time of year we have Hanukkah. That's a Jewish festival.
It's the Jewish festival, yeah.
What's Kwanzaa?
I'm not sure. Let me check. I think what Kwanzaa is it's an invented festival for African Americans to have who aren't Christian, but because of slavery and stuff, had their actual heritage taken from them. So it's a kind of a reconstructed winter festival to replace the kind of the Christian narrative.
Oh.
That's a bit of a guess now. I could be wrong. Yeah, no, so I was right.
You were right.
It offers African heritage and African American culture. And it goes from the 26th of December to January the 1st and culminates in a feast and gift giving. And It was invented in the 60s.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, what else is happening on this time? Ramadan.
Solstice.
For pagans. Yeah. Is Ramadan
goes
finished
by the lunar calendar, so it's at a different time each solar year.
Okay.
It moves around.
Oh, okay. Huh, okay. Well, just anyone who's celebrating all those festivals, all those
I'm sure there's other ones as well. I don't know what they all are, but have fun with all of them.
Let us know. Happy Christmas, everyone. And we will see you. Hopefully you'll be listening to this on Christmas Day. I intend on having this released for Christmas Day. So when you have to deal with in-laws you don't want to see, you can just go somewhere quiet and listen to
Star Wars.
Listen to us talk about Jarl Poof. But yeah, hopefully you'll have it for Christmas, and we will be back in the new year.
Yes, 2017. The year of the Artifexian.
The year of the Artifexian.
Yeah.
2016 is drawing to a close. Finally. No more deaths. There's going to be no more deaths now from now until the end of time. They've all happened in 2016. We've got our quota done. Like
that's good. Yeah,
it's good. Yeah. So have a very happy Christmas to everyone, and a happy New Year, and we will see you in 2017.
Edgar out.
Edgar out.
Turns out Chewie was dead all along. We're all Chewie, and we were all dead all along.